Hello, welcome to my channel, OKSDM. I'm Dennis, and this is where I make mistakes running games so you don't have to. Thank you so much for your time, for stopping by and listening to all the mistakes I've made and helping me review them today. Whether you're watching live or listening to a VOD, I really appreciate the time that you've given me. So today we're doing something a little bit different, and we're putting that tagline to good use at long last, and we're going in and actually reviewing a game that I ran. We'll start out with how this was prepared, what I did with the cast behind the scenes, but this is a one-shot of sagas set in Grimm, and Grimm is a setting that is going to be released as a supplement after the core rulebook of sagas comes out in September or October. I'm very, very excited to be able to do this. I've tried it out a couple of times in more private circles. I really, really enjoy it. The feedback has been great, so I'm finally bringing it here to my own channel. It's good to see you, Jacob. Make sure you drive safe. Duval. So, as I promised, we'll start off with a little bit about this game. This was, like I said, a one-shot run in Grimm. And I'll start out with sort of going over what exactly Grimm is on the live stream that we're going to be watching. And I'll pull that up in a second, but I think it's very, very important to always consider what happens between the GM and the players behind the scenes in the lead up to the game. I don't remember all of it, and I think I'm going to remember pieces of it as I go through and rewatch this stream. But like I said, it's very, very important to keep that in mind. First thing we did, and always the most important, especially for streams, is safety tools. I use them with every single game, and never, ever has it caused a problem. It sets ground rules that so we can know what to expect, what sort of movie rating, if you will. In most cases, we end up going with PG-13 and slipping into a little bit of R rating if we feel the vibe allows. But never, ever crossing any lines that people have set down. So if someone has arachnophobia, we don't talk about spiders. We don't describe them. We don't bring them up. We don't anything. And I don't remember if it was for this game or another one, but since Grimm is a setting where you play critters, I actually had to take out one of the NPCs because one of the NPCs was a spider. I didn't take him out. I just sort of switched him with another creature. So keep that in mind when you are running your games. Make sure that you are aware of your players' comfort zones and that you respect them. It's very important because when you make someone uncomfortable in an unfun way, it kind of ruins the whole vibe for everybody, and that's what we want to avoid. The whole point is for everyone at the table to have fun, and boy, howdy did we for this stream. I think more stuff will come up about planning characters behind the scenes that we did in the lead up for the stream. So I think it's about time that we got into it. At any time, you can leave a chat. If you're watching this live, you can hop into the chat and ask a question. I'm happy to pause it and review with you what my thought process was for certain things during this game. And if you're watching the VOD, please feel free to throw your questions in the comments. If you can, also please provide a timestamp so I can go back and rewatch and remember so I can answer your question to the best of my ability. We are here to all grow together by watching me mess up. So, without further ado, it's about time we started watching this stream. I have already fast forwarded it past all of the introductions that we do at the beginning of the stream. So if you want to get to know one of the players and their work better, go ahead and follow them on the @s that are on the screen. Or you can go over to ADH Druids on Twitch and watch those intros yourself. But we're not going to spend time going through all of that. We're here to review the actual game. And that is where we will start. The small town in which our story is set is not the richest place. There are a couple buildings that are dilapidated, run down. The roads are only the main road through the town is paved at this point. This is the Victorian era, just before the turn of the 18th century. All right, right about the 1880s or 1890s. The Industrial Revolution has begun and has been going strong for a good long while now. Most people, especially in the richer parts of this town, have access to electricity. But our story tonight is not going to follow those people. This is going to follow something quite smaller, but no less important. It's raining right now, a light drizzle just after the sun goes down. We can see the brand new electric street light on Main Street shining down onto the intersection, and it catches two figures, small figures, rounding the bend. The larger of the two appears to be, well, I think I'll let Duval describe his character. So this was how I usually do intros for characters. And this is kind of how I'm going to be running this. I have now switched. I know it's my voice you're hearing, and I can't tell if there's a difference. Let me know if you can actually tell when it's old me talking and current me talking. So I apologize if that's confusing. If people like this, I'm going to probably make that a little bit smoother and play like a sound effect, like start, pause, play. However, I'll figure something out. But for this intro, I can tell because I'm sort of like looking around while I'm introducing the scene. And I noticed that in this case, I did not write it out beforehand. Normally, I would write something like this. When you have an introduction to a scene, I always find it is much, much better if you are reading a script, essentially, reading a description out loud. I might have not had time for this. I don't remember why I didn't do it. It's not going to happen every time, but when I can, I like to make sure that I have that sort of description to even better immerse both myself and the rest of the players at the table into our setting. In this case, I liked doing some sort of rain because that always I find rain sets a certain mood. And in this case, we were going to get like kind of dark, and rain is always a good way to describe that. The weather in your game should reflect the emotions that the party and the players are having. In this case, I wanted it to sort of reflect a little bit of misery going into this, because that sort of like foreshadows what's going to happen. I fully intended something dark to happen during this game. And so I started out with that rain. I also set it at night because it's sort of like stealth and subterfuge, and I feel like the stakes are higher when it's nighttime. You have to be more careful. You can't see everything, and not everything can see you. So that sort of vibe was a very important thing for me to set. And I don't remember, even though I just listened to it, I don't remember if I did this correctly. And I don't do it every time, but I should. When you're describing a scene, sorry, when I'm describing a scene, I always try to incorporate more than one sense. I want to start with how my favorite two are how the air feels and how the air smells. I find those are the two that come to me most naturally. Like, is this air going to be very dry? Is it going to be soaking wet? Obviously, it's raining, so there would be it would be soaking wet. But what would this rain smell like? Would it smell like clean, fresh air? Would it smell like wet garbage, wet dog? And I didn't go over that this time. I probably should have, but I don't. And I don't remember if I did. But I like to do that. I don't remember every time. And it's something that I'm definitely working on is incorporating more senses into my descriptions. It's a very common piece of advice for writing, and I think a lot of pieces of advice for writing can carry over to running TTRPGs because there's so much overlap. You're both crafting these stories and trying to evoke these emotions. So something as simple as using multiple senses in a description carries over quite well. Let's get back into it and hear the description of our first character. Oh, actually, before we do, I like to do this sort of thing, and if you've seen my streams before, you'll know this. I like to have the players describe their characters as we see them, sort of like it's a movie or a show. Describe the characters as the audience sees them for the first time. And I think this is very, very helpful for streams specifically and running actual plays because there's an audience. You're trying to make this feel as cinematic as possible. At least that's the vibe I go for. And I think in this case, it works out. I haven't felt like it's not working. No one's told me otherwise. In fact, some people have said that they really enjoy the way I allow the players to describe their characters as part of the story itself instead of just like doing it during our introductions. Like, hi, I'm Tobias. I'm going to play a dog, and this dog wears this. But if they get to describe it in scene, like Tobias is going to look different when he's wet. And I want to give the player the chance to build onto the immersion that's already there from the setting description. So let's get back into it.
Sure. You probably hear the soft pitter patter of paws first. And if you look, sort of walking through what is likely a little bit of the lantern light, you see the outline of a very large Saint Bernard dog. Very like, that big old mange of and with a bit of a serious look on his face, and for obvious reasons, a very tight looking hat, and just walking, kind of keeping an eye on everything, kind of wrapped around the midriff, which is like this like brown and black fur, is like kind of this like wrapped around like armor, and looks to be some sort of equipment on around, and just kind of just looking around and listening to a smaller figure slightly above him, and by above him I mean on him.
Go ahead, Aetherius.
Sure. You see, on top of this giant Saint Bernard, the closer you look and the harder you squint, you'd be able to make out that is not an abrasion or a weird bump on his back. It is, in fact, a very little tiny hamster. I am playing Detective Sprinkles this evening. Detective Sprinkles has got his little police hat on. Right now, he is a lot less serious than his partner. The way that he's approaching this is that this is kind of just like another night. We'll see what goes on from here. He is so relaxed, in fact, that he has one of those like little pellets, like in his hand, it's like a burrito size almost. And he's been nibbling on that as he's riding on the back of his companion here. And I like to think that as they turn the corner, he's like, "Oi, oi, slow it down a little bit. I almost fell off there."
No, it's my apologies, Gov. I thought we were I was getting a bit excited. I think we've arrived.
He's going to put the entire pellet in his mouth and that giant cheek thing. All right, let's roll, mate. And he's going to slide down. He has like a little grappling hook that's a paper clip, and he slides all the way down to the cement and is standing next to his partner.
The two of you gaze upon this building. Dark, just like all the ones along this street. So, I'll pause here again. I loved both of those characters' descriptions. Duval and Aetherius are both fantastic players. I've played alongside them both multiple times now, and every single time it's been a blast. So if you happen to see them on a stream that you stop by, please stick around. I promise you'll be impressed and you'll be provided with some very high quality entertainment and roleplay. They're even, and I can tell that Jacob here is of the same mind for as far as descriptions go, because when he started describing his character, the first thing he said is you hear the sound of paws pitter-pattering along. And immediately I can already hear that as part of a film. You can see this dog, you can hear it before you see it, paws going through water, splashing a little bit in the rain, and going into the lamplight. It's not how he described it, but I can see it very, very clearly in my mind's eye, as he did. And Sprinkles took a slightly different approach with comedy, which you'll see a lot throughout this game, and I really, really appreciated it. Aetherius was very, very good at taking the comedic spin on, yes, we're playing animals, and there's going to be wildly weird, size comparisons. He's describing tiny little pellet that he's holding as a burrito in both hands, which totally makes sense, because that's what it would be for a small creature like him. He mentions a paperclip grappling hook that he's using to get off of Tobias's back. And that was also great. This was all these two. I can't take credit for any of this, except for the setup to give them the space where they can flex the great role-playing skills that I know they both have. As part of sort of a step back, originally I had been wanting them to go a little bit further down. How I saw it in my head was they would round this corner and they'd keep walking for a little bit down this street. And that's not what happened. I don't know if there was a miscommunication or if I just straight up didn't say that that's what I was thinking. Either way, I heard that Tobias said something along the lines of, I think we're here. And immediately I'm like, okay, that's fine. They're moving the building from that side of the street to this side of the street where the light is totally fine. It's not going to make any real changes to the story. And so I just rolled with it and allowed them to continue having the building in front of them and went on with the description of the actual building itself. Maybe if I had some sort of event take place along that road, I could move that event to happen to them right in front of the building, and that would have worked out just fine. So I like to make sure that the players have the opportunity to change the story, and if they make a mistake, it's not a mistake. I roll with it. That is how I like to view it, because if you don't have to absolutely correct the players on minor incongruencies that they might slip up on, then don't. Because I certainly make those mistakes too all the time, and the players sometimes ask for clarification on what exactly is happening, and I think that happens on this stream. That happens to me especially when we do theater of the mind combat, because I've got a map in my head, and I don't know if it matches the maps in their heads. So asking for clarification from the players, totally fine. If they mess something up, or quote-unquote mess something up, it's not really a mess up. I'm confident in my own skill to improvise and make whatever they said true. That way there is no actually this, because that sort of like is a stutter step in the stride that is roleplay, especially on stream. We're trying to produce this for an audience. The audience loved it. Like, if you can go rewatch the stream, keep an eye on chat. They went crazy at certain parts. It was really fun to watch. But yeah, bottom line for this little pause is, if a player accidentally says something that you weren't expecting, like, oh, we're here, when you thought there was more travel to be had, then make the player right. Say that they have done that travel, or just move their location closer, depending on what you've established already beforehand. It's not a problem, really, if you have to correct them. Like, if there's no real way around it that you can see in the moment, correcting them's not that big of a deal. Don't overdo it. Once or twice is fine for one player in one session, but any more than that, and it starts to get repetitive and kind of annoying, both for you and for the player, and therefore for everyone else at the table. And sort of like turns the fun dial down, which we want to avoid. So if you can improvise and make whatever the player says correct, try it. Do it. I promise it is really, really rewarding to keep the pacing of the story going. It's not conspicuous. It doesn't stand out in any special way. But there have been rumors, dreadful rumors, about what goes on inside those walls. Apparently, this is a laboratory. And the animals that come out of here are never quite right.
Milkov, it's like, it doesn't stand out in any particular way. And so thus, it's just like really loud, right?
Yeah, I think how we approach this is certainly worth review. I'm hoping all of this is some stupid hoax and that there's nothing happening here. But rumors
Sure.
are prevalent enough that they sent us. So there's got to be some merit to it.
Right.
How should we go about this?
So here, as part of the description of this building, we're really not that far into the story. And this is something that I find very useful for streamed games, especially, is instead of explicitly stating what the goals are and why people are here, you can sprinkle in hints and clues as to the goals. The players know what's going on beforehand. Just to clarify, that's one of the things we went over beforehand. Like, they already knew that there were rumors here. And it was up to us as a table to make sure that was said explicitly at some point for the benefit of the audience. If you're doing a home game, that's not entirely necessary. It can be fun to make it seem more cinematic by making it seem like this is one concise story that can be viewed, which is something I really like to do. But not every single table is going to play that way. Like, if all the players know the goals going in beforehand, you don't have to say that there's a rumor. Like, everybody here and everybody that knows about this already knows that there are rumors about this building of animals coming out that aren't quite right. So you don't have to restate that. But if there's an audience that is seeing this for the first time and knows nothing about the characters, the setting, the plot, anything, then restating it is helpful.
I suppose if
Out
you,
of character, I do have sneak was the the trait that I ended up on in my like rebrand of this this character this evening. So I do want to throw that out there. We could potentially see Detective Sprinkle try to infiltrate his way in. Maybe the dog could cause some kind of distraction, disturbance, or could meet around. Let's think carefully about this. And what do we see, Dennis? What does the front of this building look like?
It looks like a 2-story building. You're not sure if there's a basement. There probably is. There are a couple steps up to the front door. The front door itself is nothing special. It doesn't have any windows across the front or the actual door itself or next to it. There are a couple windows for both first floor and second floor. But actually, you know what? Sprinkles, give me a check to determine what
Let's
exactly you
roll.
see. So, descriptions like these don't necessarily have to have multiple senses. When a player asks, what does blank look like? Then you can just use vision. You don't have to describe the smell of it unless it's like an important clue. Like if this building smelled like rotting flesh was wafting out of it, that would be kind of important to mention. But in this case, there was nothing super important to the plot other than what the building actually looked like. And in my description, I was guessing that Sprinkles here, or Sprinkles as player, was trying to think of a way to infiltrate it, because that was the context of the conversation in which they asked this question. So I started to try to give little details that someone trying to infiltrate a building would be looking at it. You describe it through the lens of someone trying to break in. So like, where are the windows? Where are the doors? Is there a back door? How high are the windows? You know, what is the structure of the building? What are all the entry points? And so that was sort of the focus of my description. I needed to make sure to include that because that was really the question that Sprinkles was asking. Yeah, sure, maybe it's a classic Victorian home with, 2 stories and some lights out front. That would not answer the question, how do I infiltrate this? So I needed to make sure that I answered both of those questions with this description, both the question that is actually asked and the question that aligns with the player's train of thought.
All right, what dice am I rolling?
Depends on your character sheet. For those who don't know, how Sagas works is the GM will ask for a check when a player character tries to do something difficult. And if anything on the character sheet applies, you'll get to either raise or lower the die you will use for this check. And in this case, lowering is better.
That's right. I want to potentially use investigate. I'm thinking maybe Tobias could kind of get up on his hind legs and like make a dog ladder for Sprinkles to like
He'd be
crawl
happy
up
to.
and then kind of look into the windowsill. So that's what I'd like to try.
Excellent. If you'd like, Tobias, you can help with this check. Spend 2 of your effort and allow Sprinkles to get an extra die on it.
Yeah, I certainly would love to. I suppose before we
So, whenever you're running a game with a new rule system that the players have not experienced before, I find it is useful to make suggestions for what the players could do. Like if you're familiar with this system, and in this case, I obviously am, like I wrote it, and Aetherius has never played this before, to my knowledge, then I wanted to make sure that he was aware of how it actually works. Like, so I explicitly described what this was and how this worked. And Duval has played this before, but only once. So I still wanted to make that suggestion since he is relatively new to the system. I wanted to make sure that he was aware of the option that, yes, there is a mechanical way in which you could help Sprinkles with this task. And I happen to be correct. That is what Tobias wanted to do in that scenario. So I lucked out there with making those suggestions.
kick things off, were you wanting to start with just trying to infiltrate, or do we want to knock and sort of have a conversation first, or do we want to just break a window and get things really going?
Oh, this is what I think. I think we do a bit of recon. We look in the window. We confirm that there are no Franken monsters being created.
Sure.
Then
Take
we
our
go
time.
back.
Alright.
We tell the
Yeah.
chief everything was normal, that he was being hysterical for being worried about this. We get accommodations. I go home. I
Treats.
just eat pizza.
Sorry.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, right.
So that's what I'm envisioning. But I do think getting a little bit of recon, looking through the window first, and then going up to
Yeah.
the door may be our best bet.
Certainly. All right. Well, I'll make sure to be quite careful then, Gov. Let's go, and I'll go ahead and go ahead and spend 2 effort.
And it's with a D8 because I'm using investigate my skill, which I got some points in.
Oh, be right. So you get a D8 because of investigate, and you get to roll 2 of them because Tobias is helping.
All right, let's do this first D8.
Yeah.
6.
So, I don't know how many people are going to be watching the VOD, but Duval's in the chat right now. Hi. And yeah, that's super fun to know. So, what's funny, he says, what's funny about the earlier point around the building, he's pretty confident he straight up forgot we weren't at the building yet, and since he was planning on handing the scene back to me. So it worked out. When you have a group of people that are experienced with this sort of improvising role play, hi, Jacob. When a group of people is experienced with this sort of improvised role play, you're allowed to, rely on that skill. And Jacob and I have played together a couple of times now, so I feel comfortable rolling with whatever he does, and I feel he's comfortable with rolling whatever I do, and it works out. And you'll see it many, many times happening, this dynamic on this stream. But it's this concept isn't just true about improv. Every single table is going to be different. In this case, we're all professionals in that we have done streams before, and it requires a certain mindset of, being willing to, go with the flow, and sometimes that means sitting there quietly. For example, I've been streaming for, this video is, almost half an hour long already, and there's still 2 people that haven't said a word because we haven't found their characters yet. I mean, we're only 10, 20 minutes into the actual stream, but they're being very, very patient. If this wasn't an actual stream, then I would have let those 2 do something by now. I like to, there's a large conversation around this, the difference between a streamed game and a home game. In this case, since this is a streamed game, I trust ADH Druids and the Roll Report, the 2 guys that haven't said anything yet, to be patient and sit there and not do anything for the first section, the first chunk of this game. And this is something we did discuss beforehand. Just like the title of the video said and the thumbnail, this party is split for almost this entire game. This is a very, very important thing to make sure that you communicate with the players. Like, there are going to be moments where you're going to have to sit there and not do anything and just listen. And those can be very long moments. I feel like this is another thing that really separates streamed games from home games. And because you see it done on stream does not mean that you should do it in your home games. Let me make that clear. Because you see it happen on Critical Role does not mean it's going to work for your table. And I know I've said it twice or more here already, and I will say it many more times across my entire channel and on other people's channels. Every table is different. Something that works for one person might not work for another. So keep that in mind as you're watching this stream, as you're helping me walk through my thought process as I ran this game. These are for my games. I hope they help you, but not everything that I use to run my games is going to be as useful for you as it is for me. So take everything that I say with a grain of salt. In this case, I am comfortable with all of these players and their skills, and I am okay with asking them to sit down and be quiet. I don't actually have to ask them that because they know that that's coming. They are aware that I'm actually doing an experiment here. This is splitting the party. So there are going to be several parts where Group A does nothing or Group B does nothing. And this was me trying out how to start with the party split as a lot of really good stories do, where, you know, you have two plot lines that come colliding together at the end. And that's what I was trying to do here. And I think it really worked. And you'll see when we get further down the stream.
All right, I roll a second one, second D8. 5.
It's pretty dark in there. It is very difficult to make out any sort of movement or light. You can't really see across to the other side. But the room you're looking into appears to be some sort of office. Like, you can barely make out a chair and a desk and a bookshelf on the opposite wall and a closed door. Your best guess is this probably isn't a great point of entry, but it could work.
All right, I'm coming back down. He's gonna climb down the dog ladder. Super quick out of character, just for I don't know if this will work in terms of flavor or mechanically or where this would fall, especially given the time period. But I would love to have some little form of steampunk powered grappling hook for him, so it's easy for him to do things like climb stairs by himself, and it won't take years for him to traverse. But I don't know if that fits within the. What do you think about that? Let me put it that way.
Grimm is a steampunk world. The technology advancements throughout the entire planet at this time by humans are actually slightly behind the technology advancements made by mice and other small creatures.
Oh, hell yeah.
So you do indeed have a steam-powered sort of pneumatic firing grappling hook where you can just...
All right.
So, pausing the stream, I really, really enjoyed this idea from Aetherius about, being able to have this grappling hook. And this wasn't a pre-made item. This isn't part of the rules of sagas, is just having this grappling hook. But he seemed really into it. And I saw this as not only and I don't mean to do this, not on this stream, but I saw this not only as a marketing opportunity for Grimm, because this is going to be a, something that I'm trying to sell eventually. But I saw this as a way to make the world feel cooler. If you saw Critter Hudson in the bottom, as I was describing that, human advancements aren't nearly as far as the critters, the small people's advancements, he got excited about that. And that's what I was trying to do. I use this opportunity to say, yes, this world is super cool. Of course their technology is advanced, and of course you can have a grappling hook. Normally I would have said, let's just have, just your starting equipment. Pick your 2 starting equipments and stick with it, because that's what the rules say. This is an example of what I hear referred to as a lot. I don't know how to phrase that. I hear this referred to often as the rule of cool. And that is, player says, I want to do something. And GM says, the rules don't say you can, but sure, I'd love to see that happen, so let's make it happen. And that's exactly what happened here. I think, if I remember correctly, Aetherius and I had a conversation briefly about this, because he had to remake his whole character because of a technical issue and his sheet didn't save. So he remade this, all of Sprinkles, 15 minutes before the stream started. And one of the last things you get when you're making a character is equipment. So I don't think he got to that point of choosing what equipment he had, and I was aware of that. So I said, you know what? If you feel like you need something, you can have the thing. And that opened up the door to him being able to have what he needed in the moment. No explanation, no preamble, no foreshadowing. Just if you need it, you have it. And he'll have 2 of those because you get 2 pieces of equipment. I wasn't going to let him have more than that because that might have started to mess with the mechanics a little bit, and the other players might have said, well, how come he gets more stuff? I want more stuff. At least that's what I would have done as if I was a player. I would start to argue back and forth with the game master about what I get versus what they get. So I think this worked out really, really well, especially because he found something that he wanted in that moment, and I was able to say, yes, you can have this thing.
Perfect. I just think that like if we need to go upstairs and Tobias isn't there, like I don't want to show up 3 days after people have been like on a
I'm
sojourn.
coming in 10 years.
Just hold on. Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm gonna come down. I didn't see shite in there. I think the best bet is the direct approach. Maybe we knock on the door, try to have a conversation, see if there's anybody there. Maybe they could just answer basic questions. Again, we go back, we tell the chief nothing is wrong, and
Sure.
I'm at home in bed within a matter of hours. So that's what I'm envisioning. I'm going to manifest that for both of us because I think that would be best case
That's a
scenario here.
big word. All right. But do you want to make a quick lap around first, just to make sure?
Yeah, sure. He's gonna like. I like to think he has like almost like a little setup, right? There's like some kind of hamster-esque chair or something where he can kind of get comfortable. We'll say it's in the collar. He's kind of like
Totally. Just wrap it. Just you just kind of pull and wrap it around his neck. Yeah, totally.
Yes, and he's using some kind of twine as kind of like a seat belt or
Totally.
something, and so he's getting in comfortable.
Cool. And I'll
All right.
once he's on, I'll make a lap around.
So here, the instant Tobias suggested making a lap around, I'm already thinking, okay, this is where we're going to switch scenes. One of the best opportunities to make a transition to a new scene is when the setting changes. In this case, they're about to leave the front of the house and go around the back of the house. That's not much of a setting change, but it's enough. And I thought that it's about time we saw our other characters, so I was starting to look for the opportunity. First thing they were going to do was move. I was expecting them to go inside the house. And I know they're going to go inside the house eventually, but I made the executive decision to move the scene to the new characters at this point because the setting was changing. And that is probably one of my go-to triggers for moving the scene from one set of characters to another, or even if it's just one party. This doesn't have to only apply to a split party. If the entire party itself is changing settings, then you can use that opportunity to go to break. You can use that opportunity to use a new description to enter into a different spot. You can use that opportunity to skip travel if you wanted. And that's something I do kind of often, to be honest, is skipping travel. And I appreciate it, Jacob. And like you provided the perfect opportunity for me to get these other players in on the action. As you make a lap around, the camera pans upwards to a window on the second floor, still wet and weeping with the condensation and a slight drizzle outside. And looking out of that window through the bars. So this is actually something that I got directly from Brennan Lee Mulligan. In Dimension 20's Escape from the Bloodkeep, when they are doing character introductions themselves, the way Brennan described it is the camera is moving. And I just stole that from him directly because it feels like cinematic. I'm not going to describe, the drone with the camera on it moving backwards. I'm going to describe what's actually happening on the quote-unquote screen, what's happening inside our mind's eye, both the mind's eye of us and the mind's eye of the audience. And I think it worked. I haven't done this super often when switching scenes, but this sort of gave the illusion that, yes, these two things are happening at the exact same time. There's no hard cut. There's no 2 minutes earlier. I wanted this to feel as simultaneous as I possibly could. These two things these two scenes are happening in tandem with one another. And I feel like that gave it much more of a sense that this is one cohesive story. And I think it worked. We definitely could have done, a couple minutes earlier, switch to these characters. And as the mouse watches the dog go down the street and approach the door, dot, 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 dot. But if I had done that, we ran the risk of one player who was in the previous scene being like, well, if that had happened, then I would have done something different. Where it's just a risk you run whenever you retcon something, and say, okay, we're going back in time, we're going to watch this scene play out. So it's one reason that I have yet to try like a time travel game ever. I know that they're out there and there are ways to do this, ways to get around this, of a player being, wait, no, if that had happened, my character would have noticed and therefore would have done something different. And I didn't have that opportunity, and I want that opportunity now. And that really throws a monkey wrench into the whole story. And it's not that I didn't trust these players to do that. It's that I didn't want them to have that feeling of this is happening and your character did something against what you think your character would have done. Because that, like, as a quote-unquote actor, I can't call myself an actor, really. I never have had any... I took Acting 101 in college. The end. I've never been in a play. Well, I was in a play in second grade. That doesn't count. Not to me. But so it's all I've got is this TTRPG role playing, and that's one of the lessons that I've learned from it, is making sure that the players are able to stay in character and feel secure in the decisions that they made. And retconning like that is dangerous and risky, I've found. Of a small cage is Darwin. Druid, please describe for us what Darwin looks like.
Darwin is a rat, but not just any kind of rat. He's a lab rat, one that has been experimented on, but not in any inhumane way, at least more, to what he feels. He's just really intelligent. And so he kind of has like a lot, like he's wearing goggles. He kind of has like this little, like very kind of mechanical type helmet, like brace around his head that like seems to probably be part of his experiment. And he has fashioned himself some like robes, kind of like more like a gi, because not only is he really intelligent and he loves tinkering on things, because like around his cage you can see just like bits and bobs of things that he's probably collected over the years, but he likes to watch martial arts, and he's just been obsessed with martial arts because there is like a dojo nearby or something from his window that he can look out, and he just watches and and so he has this little gi on, but he has like gloves on his front claws, and just so he just bit of a technophile steampunk person, but also really loves martial arts, and he's just kind of sitting there tinkering on something with a wrench in his tail and kind of just chilling.
Darwin, tonight is the night that you've been planning on for months, which to a rat is closer to years. So I've paused it now because I want to clarify something. Part of one thing that I was missing from the character description of Darwin is emotional demeanor. And because that's something that's very important to the story that we're trying to tell here, I wanted to make sure that this is at the forefront of his mind and at the forefront of the minds of the audience, because Darwin's event for this night is very, very important. It's why tonight is the important night. It's why tonight is the night we're telling our story, because this is why interesting things happen. And so I bent one of my rules, and it's a very important rule to me, that you should always allow the players to have as much agency over their characters as possible. player agency. It's something that I see talked about online a lot. And with good reason. It's very important for the players to feel that they are in control of the characters that they are in charge of. So as a game master, and I break this rule way too often, and I need to stop doing it, but I have a bad habit of telling players what their characters are feeling. And I always have my reasons for doing it. In this case, it's exactly what I just described. It is telling the player that your character is like, you're nervous. Like this is, I don't remember exactly how I handled it here. I think I asked Druid what his character is feeling because that a thing is happening tonight, and that was if I did that if I didn't do that, that's what I should have done. If I did that, yay, good job me. But I've had a bad habit in the past of telling a player what their character is feeling, and that directly takes away that player agency that is so important to making sure that a player is having fun. Because if you're being told what your character feels in a moment, especially if, like, for some games, that's the whole point. Like, you roll dice to see what your character feels, and that's how you act as that character. But in this case, we're not doing that. In this case, how the character feels should be entirely up to the player, not the game master. Because that's part of what's fun, is figuring out how your character feels. And if I take that away from them, they begin having less fun. And that is, the whole point of the game. So less fun, bad. More fun, good. Make sure that the players are able to decide for themselves what their characters are feeling. I don't remember what I did here. Hopefully I did it right. Let's see. How do you feel? Yes! I did it correctly!
That, excited, nervous, he knows it's the day, but he's also uncertain of what the outside world is going to be like, because he's only ever been in his cage. And the only way that he's gotten information is through one of his friends.
And as your thoughts turn to your friend, you see him swooping down through the droplets. This was a masterful move on Druid's part. I love that he allowed me to lead immediately into this new character. Like, obviously, Druids knows that his friend is another player character, and that's what he was going for. And this is what, people that improv for a living do. They send signals, they tee up something for the next person, and the Druids made a great move here. I really, really appreciated it. And land just on the ledge right outside the door. Critter, please describe for us what Hudson looks like.
Right. Well, Hudson is sort of a small crow, very dark, black, shiny feathers. And he's got sort of this little jacket that I think Darwin helped him make, as well as a tiny sort of backpack and pockets for some various small tools and things. You could probably see sticking out of one pocket is like a fragment of a handkerchief, and wrapped around one of his legs is a strong piece of wire that's sort of malleable, bendable, manipulatable, and can be made into many shapes without breaking or becoming brittle like some metals can. And he's got very sharp, keen eyes, and some of his feathers just sort of swoop asymmetrically over his face.
And as you land on the ledge just outside Darwin's window, the contraption that you designed together goes off, and the window opens very slightly, just enough for you to slip inside. So this little bit right here, and I've paused it now, this little bit right here was entirely improv. Nobody had talked about that contraption beforehand, at all. And I have found a problem as Hudston's character was being described, and that was, there's a window between them. They need to be in scene together. This is going to be much more efficient if the crow is inside. How is the crow going to get inside? And so both saying that this contraption is here both establishes even further that these two have known each other for a while, that they are both, one or both of them are mechanically minded, which had already been hinted at very heavily on both sides. But this just ingrains that into, the audience's minds, into the other players' minds. It just ingrains it further into the story itself. And this created a problem later on that I had to solve thinking on my toes very quickly. But this contraption that opened the window, entirely improvised. This was not part of the plan. And I am very thankful that the players just rolled with it, and it went really well.
We should have made it just a bit taller, Darwin. It's just a bit. It's starting to cramp my feathers.
I think you've been eating too much seed.
Well, it's possible. It's hard to resist sometimes. Oh, anyway, mate, listen. Are you ready?
Yeah, of course I'm ready. I'm just also not ready. Like, what is the outside world like? I mean, you've told me so many interesting and curious things, and I'm just so excited to get my hands on whatever I can take apart and rebuild and learn. But I don't know. Maybe I should stay in the cage.
No, mate. Don't let the man keep you down. You know it's one of the things I go on about a little bit, I know, but you can't let the man keep you in this cage, bruv. We're made to be free. We're made to go out to explore. Ain't you want to get your little tiny paws on some of the sewer systems or the lights just right outside the window?
Oh yeah, those lights are really, really interesting. I want to know how they work.
I just can't do it from inside your cage, mate.
I know, and and I've been working on my latest invention, and I think I have it finally working.
Oh,
and...
do I get a demonstration?
Oh, it's exactly.
Come on, Darwin. I love your tinkering and your tools. Come on.
Well, if you're ready, then I think it's time to test it out. And so he kind of.
And that is where we're going to pause it right before the demonstration, because this whole bit of roleplay between these two, their dynamic was amazing. As far as I know, they've never met before this session. But I'd love to see them in more permanent stream so I can watch more of their character dynamics with each other. But like I said, it is break time. If you've been watching for a while, make sure you get up, get some water, hydrate, stretch, walk around if you need to. We will be back in 5-10 minutes. So don't go any blah, 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 blah. See, I need a break too. Don't go anywhere. Hello. We're back. We left off at a very important part of this stream, and that is more descriptions, because the descriptions here have all been fantastic, and I assure you they will continue to be so. But we're about to see Darwin the Mouse's contraption. And one of the really cool things about Sagas is that it lets you flavor your abilities however you want. In fact, it encourages it very heavily. A little bit of an ad spiel. Don't worry, it won't be long. But Control Fire, for example, is one type of talent, something that will level up with you as you grow more powerful. If you are playing in a sort of Mad Max setting, maybe the guy with flamethrowers for arms has the Control Fire talent, as would a arsonist from a cyberpunk setting or a plain fire mage from high fantasy. They would all have the exact same mechanics, but flavored very differently. And so this being a steampunk setting, Darwin, or Druids, is about to describe what his teleporting ability looks like because of a steampunk power system.
Like, puts a couple more pieces together really quick, and and tinkers and flips a switch on this like little kind of makeshift backpack, and like little zaps of electricity like at the top kind of whirl, and like there's a bunch of like whirly doos and just random like noises going off, and he kind of straps it on and buckles it in. He's like, all right, I'm ready to leave the cage. And he's going to spend one effort to teleport out of the cage using his new little invention.
Darwin,
Please
that was
describe.
bloody genius.
What exactly does this teleport look like?
It is like...
I don't mean to interrupt this, because this is a great sequence, but real quick, another thing that is really important to me is letting the players describe their abilities, especially in sagas, because it is them that came up with the flavor for this, so they should be the ones to describe exactly what these abilities look like. And that's why I asked Darwin what the teleport looks like instead of describing it for him.
It's as it kind of like as he attaches it, and he has like a little button that he has in his hand, and he pushes the button, and it kind of like just everything just whirls to to life even more, and it glows, and you kind of have like this green light that shimmers around him, and he just like poof, and then poof, and he's right where he is aiming directionally.
And as you zap into this new location, there you feel like, well, actually, Hudson, you would see there's just basically this flash of electricity, and Darwin appears outside the cage on the table, fur smoking slightly, standing on end.
I'm going to give him just a small pat with my wing to put out the bits of smoking fur.
I know I just said, and I paused again, I know I just said that you should let the players describe their own abilities, but sometimes I have a good idea and I can't help it. I really, really wanted Darwin's fur to be smoking after this teleport with his own contraption. I thought it was just too funny and cool to let go, and it fit with this vibe perfectly. So that is why I took on a little bit of the description after Darwin had finished.
And Darwin, that was incredible. I was all set to blow the hinges off your cage, but I guess we could do it anyway if you hate the place.
I'm so glad that worked. It worked, Hudson.
It worked. It worked. You're alive. Just might singed, and if you meet any lady rats, they might not like the smell too much. But
God, it's okay. There's obviously some kinks to work out, but it worked. Are you ready to?
it worked.
So, and he looks around for the first time outside of his cage, and like with the intention of leaving, and he kind of gets this wonderment in his eyes, and just like, it's really happening, Hudson. I'm leaving.
You're leaving this shithole to the ground. We could burn it on the way out.
No, we don't. No, we don't. We're not gonna burn the lab. Like, the lab gave me everything that I ever known. Like,
Well, mate, but it's taken so much from other people, and it's still just sort of a representative of the monarchy and sort of the, the totalitarian government of our land, sort of keeping everyone downtrodden and underfoot.
So, point of clarification. Critter made it really, really obvious for those that are familiar with sagas. But in sagas, you get to pick a struggle. And one of the struggles he took was anarchist. And boy, does it show in his roleplay of Hudson. It's so funny. It's amazing. Even rewatching it, I can't help but smile at how he performs this particular piece of his character.
so one of the traits that I gave, struggles that I gave Darwin, is naive. And he just, as he
Very
listens
appropriate.
to Hudson saying all this, I was like, Hudson, you say the weirdest things. I don't know half of what you say, but like, I just know that I've lived here my entire life, and the scientists have only ever been kind to me, or at least from what I remember. I don't know about this like larger government monarchy. I don't really understand what you're saying, but we don't need to burn it down. We can just leave.
You sure, mate? I got a couple of these nice little bottles, and I will pull out from my coat what you thought might have been an handkerchief is actually a one-shot vodka bottle with a little handkerchief stuffed into it. And I reach with my other foot into my pocket, and I pull out a little book of matches. I've got all the materials we might need. You sure?
Hudson, I think that is not appropriate. Maybe we can save it for a celebration once we're actually out of here.
A celebratory explosion. I like the way you think. It's better when you do the thinking for us sometimes.
Yeah. All right, Hudson. Let's go. Let's get out of here.
Out the window, mate. Come on then. I will scurry under this little open window we've jiggered.
And as you're trying to squeeze underneath the window, you hear a click, a whir, and the window slams shut.
On top of me.
Right, like you got one feather stuck underneath it.
Oh, that was my nice feather.
What happened?
Well, I don't know, mate. Our mechanism sort of. Your mechanism, I guess. It broke. I'm gonna try to just grab the window with my claws and fly. See if I can.
So this is what I was talking about earlier. I've paused the stream to again rub in the fact that I screwed up. I thought this really cool mechanical thing was going to work out for the better. And Critter just threw a larger monkey wrench into the story. Like, oh, you're trying to escape? We could just go out this open window right here. I mean, it feels pseudo so that they can't open it again. And like the players knew that. And I feel like this was like they somehow through improv in character told me that, dude, you left a window open. Of course we're going to use it. I'll give you a chance to fix it just this once. And so I had to like jump on it really quick before the characters got out of the window, because if they had kept role-playing, they would have both just gone. The end. That scene is done. And that would have been the end of half of the story. And then when we go back to the other characters, they would have continued in, and then the people that escaped wouldn't have any story left, and I'd have to find a way to bring them back. Maybe I could have done like I forgot something, I have to go back, and then trap them inside, but yeah, I was like, well, they win. So I had to jump onto that really quickly, because sometimes you just gotta quote unquote railroad the characters into the story that you have planned. And I'm glad that the players here were okay with the window just closing for no reason. Because the reason was story. It was a meta reason, and I couldn't think of something better in the moment. And they were very forgiving, and I appreciate it.
Lift it up that way.
And as you're trying to pry this window open, the camera moves back out into the rain and down onto this soaking wet dog with a hamster in a chair on his back. You've done your lap.
Cover me in this.
So before we jump into this next scene, I want to talk about the switch to this scene. There was no setting change that I could feel coming up in the scene, and it wasn't about to happen soon. It would have happened if they escaped, and so that sort of, I think, got me thinking about, okay, there's other players at this table, there's other characters in this story, we need to see what they're doing now. We need to find a way to switch back. And this transition wasn't great. In hindsight, I probably should have just let them go out the window and then figured out a reason that they had to go back to the lab. Maybe invented a sister for Darwin or something that, oh shoot, I left one of my family members. We forgot to get her out of her cage too. And that would have thrown something entirely new into the story that no one was expecting, but it would have kept the story itself concise and of one mind. So this transition was rough. I didn't really like it. I felt like I was sort of cutting off the dynamic that Darwin and Hudson were still playing on. I sort of cut in the middle of the scene. I think the reason that I cut it here is because I wanted it to be like a cliffhanger, oh no moment. Like, yes, we can finally escape. Door slam shut. Oh no, we're stuck. Cut to new scene. I don't think it actually worked. I could have done it. I don't know how I could have done it more smoothly. I should probably, I agree. From a timing perspective, they had the right amount of time in character. And I feel like this reasoning could have worked as well, of the, oh no, cliffhanger, switch to new scene. But I don't think I did it that well this time. There are other times when I switched the scene well, like the first one when the setting changed. That one's real easy. Apparently the cliffhanger is harder, and I didn't notice it while I was running this game. I just kept going. And so I'm really glad that I'm rewatching it now, so I have that in mind to make the cliffhangers more obvious. Describe the, oh no, the tension in the room beforehand, before switching scene, that is. But let's switch scenes. Let's see what happens next.
This rain that I have built to come prepared for this.
You've done your lap. I'd like both of you to make checks to see what you determine about this building from walking around it once.
All right, give this a roll.
Oh, rolled a 3.
7.
Nice. So I've paused it again because this is something small but also kind of important, I think. And that is when you make another way to switch scenes is to switch scenes right as someone attempts to do something, right as someone is making a check. This is a good time to switch out of scene, but it makes coming back in a little more difficult. They say, I'm going to have you roll that check when we come back. Right now, we're going to switch over here. That's not what you actually say. You describe it differently. And we won't go into that right now. You can rewatch how I described it for more lessons if you want, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a teacher, really. I'm just learning my own stuff and talking myself through my own game. But it makes coming back to that scene a little rough because the first thing that you have to do is ask for a check. I think scene transitioned scene transitions are best when they are sandwiched between two descriptions. Ooh, that's hard to say. Scene transitions are best sandwiched between two descriptions. I found a new tongue twister, maybe. But it's true. If you do a description and then transition to a new scene and then do another description, the transition works better. It feels smoother. And it's not just because it is one person, it's just the game master doing all of that, doing the description, the transition, and the description, but it also works just from a narrative standpoint. The first description lets you take control of the scene, and you need control of the scene to do a good transition, because that way you're not immediately cutting someone off. So first description gives you control of the scene, then you transition, and then the second description sets a new scene and sets up what the audience and the characters in scene are experiencing, so that we can re-get into a different, re-immerse ourselves into that different scene and extract ourselves from the previous one. I find this works. I should do it more often. Like, putting these things into practice is much more difficult than actually saying them, and that's kind of why I'm doing these streams, because I need to say them out loud so that I remember to put them into practice more often. And this is one of them. Description, transition, description, then let the players do their thing. Sprinkles is so like put out of it. Like, he really doesn't want to be here. This is just another run. You just want to go home. But Tobias this is very exciting stuff.
This is so exciting.
Yeah. You've been out. So notice here, I actually explicitly state what the characters are saying, or characters are feeling, instead of letting the players do that. In this case, that's okay, because both of these feelings have already been established, both from the session 0 that we did, where we established Tobias is just very excited to be here, and Sprinkles is ready to retire. Like, he's so tired. But all of us know that those are those two characters' feelings, and sometimes explicitly stating a character's feelings can be a good bit of storytelling in roleplay games. Normally not in novels. It's kind of frowned upon in like longer form, more controlled story formats. When you explicitly state a character's motivation or their feelings in a certain moment. But I think for this one, I did it because it had already been established, and because it rolls into and becomes part of the description of the checks that they've done. See, Sprinkles failed a check because he doesn't actually care what's going on, and Tobias succeeded because he's very excited and putting a lot of energy into this. And that's how I interpreted the dice's influence on the story. I made the dice agree with what is already happening in our tale. Outside plenty of times before, but outside with an intention and a goal in mind, that's new.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of your
walk in the park, literally.
And because your mind is so laser focused on your goal, you are able to spot that just to this, there's a back door to this building, and this back door has a doggy door access.
Lieutenant, I found a way in.
Okay. Oh, hear me out, right? We've looked in the window. I feel like we've done our due discourse. Listen to me, right? Hear me out. We go back, we tell the chief we saw nothing, or that we spoke to the owner and the owner owned up to whatever weirdness is happening. And then we get a fucking pint, mate. Like, I feel like the more that we involve ourselves in this, the longer we're going to be here. But you had something you wanted to share. Listen to your plan as well.
So I appreciate your thoughts, but that would be lying, right, Gov?
I feel it you know, to some, perhaps. I will argue, though, that you and I are intellectual enough to work through the moral grays here. I'm really knackered, mate. I would love to go home and just lay down. But if doing your plan, if doing the due diligence is easier, I will do my homework, and then we can wrap this up. And let's do your plan. Quicker we get in, we get out.
Okay.
I can get home. Everything will work. What do you think of that?
All right, I think that's an accord, certainly. Yeah, we can just we'll just pop in, just take a look around inside. By the way, how are you doing with the rain? I have a mighty need to just shake, and I don't want to hurt you,
Oh,
certainly.
please.
Sir,
This twine is not that strong, mate. Please.
yeah, sure. No, it's not a problem. I just wanted to be, transparent. No, it's fine. I can wait. I can wait. Yeah, yes, totally.
Let
All
me
right.
get there. Thank you for telling me. I
Of course,
appreciate
of course,
that.
of course. So here's my strategy. I'm going to walk in,
Mhm,
and then I'm going to shake very violently,
mhm.
and then I'll make sure that you're not injured by water, and then we will proceed. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds good.
Right.
All right.
And he'll let the lieutenant off, and proceed quietly through the doggy door.
And I paused it here again, because as Jacob said in chat, my description of the wet dog allowed him to tee up this specific sequence very easily. And I know I'm supposed to be critiquing myself here, but goddamn, Jacob, you are picking up every last storytelling seed that I leave behind, either intentionally or unintentionally, and you are sprouting it into something amazing. In this case, a whole sequence where dog has to, hang on, no, not yet, I really want to shake, and resist that urge, and turn it into sort of a comedy bit in the middle of our stream. And I really enjoyed it because one thing that horror and comedy have in common is tension. And this is one of the few examples and more obvious examples of where tension is put to good use in comedy. You know that this thing is going to happen. You know that the joke is coming. You know that the event is here and is about to happen, but it's not happening yet, and you really, really want it to. And I think that is it's a very good example of that specific type of storytelling beat. So good job. I enjoyed it. You make it in just fine. Go ahead and make a check to see how quiet you are when you do so.
So it's a good opportunity to tell everyone that I'm not good at quiet. Because I took the attractive trait, which also allows me to take the prominent what's the word, struggle. So everyone wants to bask in my glow as I shake off. So I gotta use a D12 for this, I think, which is not good. Let's see what we got. Cool.
Got this, Tobias.
Let's see. Is that a
We
6?
believe in you.
Nope, that's a 9.
Wah, wah.
You just shake. Water goes everywhere once you're inside. It is now the mat just inside this door is now sopping wet.
Oh,
Out here, bro.
oh, sorry. Do you want to come in? Here, actually, why don't I do this? And then you just see a paw just back through the door.
Make my little way, moving my little legs.
So, I'd like to pause here for a critique of myself now, because one of the things that I'm trying to work on is structuring my sentences in my head before I say them, as I'm doing now. Because if I say them sort of like this, and I don't really know what I'm going to say beforehand, in this case, I'm kind of laying it on thick and doing it a little more intense. You can hear the difference in my speech when something is planned versus when it's improvised and sort of there's a lot of ums and ahs and ands, and turns into like a run-on sentence. And I keep doing this upwards inflection at the end, and I don't ever really make a statement. But when I take a moment, and this is very difficult to do mentally right now, when I take a moment to structure my sentences and give myself the opportunity to pause, it is much more performative. It feels and sounds more professional, and it's definitely something that I have been working on ever since I started performing on stream TTRPGs. That was a bad example, where I was explaining and describing the shaking wet dog. There were 4 ums and half a sentence or something like that. It wasn't good. I'm going to go back a little bit so we can
I took the
hear it again.
attractive trait, which also allows me to take the prominent what's the word, struggle. So everyone wants to bask in my glow as I shake off. So I gotta use a D12 for this, I think, which is not good. Let's see what we got. Cool.
Got this, Tobias.
Let's see. Is that a
We
6?
believe in you.
Nope, that's a 9.
Wah, wah.
Wah, wah.
You just shake, water goes everywhere as once you're inside. It is now the mat just inside this door is now sopping wet. So there were 3 or 4 ums in there. There was a like. The description itself used very baseline words, with the exception of the mat description of sopping. But the "you just shake" is not good writing. And like Jacob said in chat, this is a very difficult skill to learn. I said earlier that there are a lot of pieces of writing advice that you can transfer over into TTRPG performing and storytelling in general. Some of them are very easy, like add more senses to your descriptions. Some of them are very hard, like use bigger words. Because finding the right words that are big enough and descriptive enough and are evocative enough to make there be more emotion, to create more emotion. See, just like that, make there be. That is weird and archaic, and it's very, very difficult to do live. It is very difficult to do even in a recording when you can restate things. But in these sort of performances, it is something that I'm trying very hard to, it's a skill I'm trying very hard to develop. And I've got a long way to go. But listening to myself here do it, then listening to myself do it here, I think I'm going to be more aware of it when I'm doing it live, and then hopefully recognize when I'm about to do it, pause, take a step back, construct my sentence in my head, then say it or perform it. It's 2 extra steps, which are a lot, especially when you're on a live stream, because there's so much going on. I know I'm not the only one that feels like I just black out during a session like this, where you're just fully in character. The only thing you're thinking about is running this game. There's a lot of mental load on you when you're trying to run a game like this. And for this one, was very fortunate to have a forgiving audience and forgiving cast, but it's definitely something that I am working on. Like, the people here know that that's a difficult skill to develop.
Out here, bro.
Oh, sorry. Do you want to come in? Here, actually, why don't I do this? And then you just see a paw just like back through the door.
Make my little way, moving my little legs out of character. I realize as druids and Hudson were describing the clothes that their characters are wearing, that Detective Sprinkles is just tits out right now, is not wearing any uniform.
Donald Duck in it.
And I'm not going to change it. I'm not going to dress him. He does have a hat on though. He does have some class.
The hat's
right?
really the important
That's
thing,
the
honestly.
most- exactly. You
Yeah.
gotta have a hat.
Mhm.
The hat means authority, you know.
All right, Dennis. I think you were describing what we see. I'm gonna waddle my little hamster way under the door and take.
So as
I'll put him back on.
but as that's happening though, Tobias, you're sort of like leaning like as close to the door as you can while stretching out your hand, and so your head's turned slightly to the side, and you're looking through an open doorway into the dark, and the only thing you can see inside that neighboring room are 2 pinpricks of bright blue light, about just slightly above floor level, and as you get it. And you pull Sprinkles back in, you turn and look again, and they're gone.
Huh. That's odd.
This was... Paused again. This was something that I was looking for an opportunity to do pretty, like, as early as possible. I wanted it to be scene of character introduction, so that all our characters are introduced. The next step in the story is to start introducing some sort of tension, some sort of crisis happening. We all know what our motives are. We all know what we're here to do. Both Darwin's escaping and the investigation of Tobias and Sprinkles. But there's going to be something that goes wrong. And I wanted to introduce hints of that as early as possible, because making sure that there is as little time between character establishment and establishment of what's going wrong is important for storytelling pacing. You don't want a long bit of, these characters are just being characters, just doing their thing, going and being themselves, making their decisions in character. And that's all well and good, but we needed to establish some form of rising tension. And these 2 pinpricks of light, how I describe them is eyes. But I never actually say that. I make it obvious that they are eyes, but never actually say that they are. And this is another piece of writing advice that I like to incorporate into my story. Don't, especially in horror, or when you're trying to create that tension, don't explicitly say what something is. And this is sort of like, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent now, but this is something that I really, really like about cosmic horror in particular, because cosmic horror is fear of the unknown. This Cthulhu, Rillier, Lovecraftian stuff. This unknowable form causes you to go insane, right? You can't describe what that is. And I think that's part of why I enjoy cosmic horror so much, both consuming it and creating it. In this case, I use the word consume to describe cosmic horror. That's a fun little thing. Oops. I got to remember that for some quote later in a game. Maybe I'll be able to use it. But I like it running cosmic horror because you get to do that all the time. You can make something scary by never actually describing it. Make it obvious that something is there, but never say what it is. The players are going to be constantly wondering what this thing is. Describe this object. What's under the cloak? Why is there a tarp over this hump? And I think that is a very, very important key to how I create tension at my tables. Describe a thing without explicitly stating what it is, especially if that thing is supposed to be scary.
Also, Gov, I forgot to ask before we infiltrated. Do we have a warrant for this?
I'm bloody assuming so. If not, what are we doing then? If we don't,
Yeah,
I'm going to assume we do. I'm going to assume that this is something that I was probably dropped the ball. It was probably me. I was probably meant to
Oh,
share that with you
oh,
and forgot.
certainly.
But I'm going to say yes that we do have one.
Certainly.
Is that
All right.
a character? Is that cool? Is that cool?
Yeah,
We've got
100%.
Yeah, I forgot to add the precinct, but yeah,
Yeah,
we
it's
can
all
be
right.
here.
I
We can
just
do
wanted
whatever
to
we
make
want,
sure.
pretty much.
Right, then on we go. And also, did you see that? There's like these two glowing blue things. Actually, I should probably be more quiet. It was like two glowing glue things. Glue
No,
things?
it's fine,
Glue
okay.
things.
I tried to not slip and die upon walking on the puddles.
Oh,
that
my
you
apologies. I'm so
did.
sorry. It was
No
a lot more
worries.
water. My
A little
coat
bit of
is
occupational
really
hazard.
taking on lots of water this evening. My apologies.
No
Certainly.
worries. I'm gonna use my steampunk grappling hook to grapple back up to Tobias's collar and sit back down now that we're inside.
You settle back into the chair.
By the way, I thought you might want to know, because you don't get to see what I see when you do that. Smashing, good luck, sir. Smashing. Quite.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. He's gonna take another one of the giant pellets out and put the entire thing into his mouth and cheek. And you're like, yeah, I really appreciate it. Right? You know, it's got function, but you also want style, right? In
Sure,
addition to
sure, yeah.
functionality.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
honestly, you making that observation makes me. I appreciate that, mate.
Certainly,
You're always so kind. I love going on these with you.
I quite enjoy your company as well. Should we announce ourselves? Since we're here and all.
Yeah, I mean, the quicker we get through this, the faster. So if you want to announce yourself.
I want to take a moment here to pause and talk about character bleed. For those of you that don't know, bleed is something that happens in acting and role playing where your character becomes part of you or you become part of your character. Like there's a crossover there. And I think there is a little bit of bleed here, and I think it works. Bleed isn't always a good thing because some of the stories we tell are very evil and very bad things happen. And there's a lot of trauma involved because that is what we find interesting in stories. And not everybody finds that interesting, but a lot of people do. And so you have to be very careful about bleed when you're playing a character. And I know I'm supposed to be reviewing the game right now, but the way that Aetherius reacted to Tobias's compliment of, oh, you look smashing as you're grappling up there, or whatever he said. I think that feels more like Aetherius than it does like Sprinkles. And I feel like this is an example of positive bleed because it feels like it's something new in this case. We didn't get that side of Sprinkles before. He's not just this grouchy old cop that just wants to, get this done with and is lazy and doesn't want to do anything. He also makes sure that when he receives a compliment, it's very clearly important to him that he makes the other person feel good about giving it. We could interpret that here, and I don't know how deep this goes, but I'm reading it as we could interpret it as though Sprinkles is actually a very good person at heart and wants to make friends and wants to keep friends. We could also read it as Sprinkles is extremely vain and just wants compliments all the time for doing the bare minimum amount of work. There are two different reads on this, and I think it is intriguing to see how this character develops from here so we can see which of those is correct. Is Sprinkles genuinely a good person that likes making friends, or is Sprinkles extremely vain and just enjoys compliments? Bleed like that, in this case, Aetherius's personality bleeding into Sprinkles' personality works. I think it elevates the story further. That doesn't always happen because a lot of times when bleed goes the other way and you're playing a character that had horrible things happen to them and that bleeds into yourself, that's bad. You don't want to have to deal with your character's trauma. So it's an important thing to be aware of. It's not a critique of what's happening here. I think that the bleed in this case was a good thing. But like I said, it's important to be aware that it exists.
So,
Sure. Sure.
yeah, I'll follow suit.
All right. Excuse me. This is the police. I'm Tobias. What is my title? Not quite lieutenant, but I'm on my way up there. But anyway, we just wanted to take a look around and just make sure everyone's above board, at least at board, but not below. Certainly not below board. Is everyone all right in here?
And we will immediately swap scenes to Darwin and Hudson. Hudson, you've managed to wrench your... So this, again, was an amazing tee-up from Duval here. It was where these two scenes had the first chance ever to actually interact, because one person is shouting into the house where the other two are. And now the scenes, it was a very, very easy transition for us to make. And it happened at the right time. And this is what happens when you get to play with friends at the table that both are enjoy this sort of role play and know what to expect. Like, I established long beforehand that this game, I was going to do an experiment and see if we could keep the party split for a long time and then have it come crashing together at a climax at the end. And so everyone here is aware of that, and everyone is doing their best to help make that work. And I don't think it would have worked if we didn't have stuff like this, with the players teeing me up to make that transition very easily. Wing free from the door, and you begin to hear shouting from downstairs.
I do have keen sense on hearing too.
Ooh, yeah, go ahead and make a
I've
check
got
to
keen
see.
Vision. We're a great pair, Darwin. Darwin, did you hear that?
I just thought of another thing. During the last transition, I said that you want to do description, then transition, then description. That isn't always necessary. The downside to doing that is that it takes a while. This is happening very rapid fire, and I didn't want to do one long description of, the voice echoing off of the walls and the camera seeing different corners of a dark house as it goes up to the second floor. In this case, I wanted to try making it faster. I think both ways could have worked, but I feel like I wanted it to be more rapid fire because these scenes have not been interacting at all thus far. So I wanted to make it feel more cohesive instead of doing a longer description, which would have made them feel further apart from each other.
I'm gonna roll. That's a 2.
You heard every word.
The police are here.
The fuzz! Cheese it, mate! We gotta get out! Hear from me!
What have you done, Hudson?
Well, I don't know. I've been resisting the authorities for ever since you sort of taught me how to make better decisions about that sort of thing, mate.
Well, yeah, you're supposed to make better decisions, not better ways of resisting them and your tomfoolery.
It's not tomfoolery. It's more. I mean, I believe most sincerely that we can't just let these bastards keep grinding us down, mate. And in this case, I don't know. I could blow a pane out with a window glass.
No, I think it's best that we just find a place to hide and I don't know, make our way out the front door, or
All right. Well, should we hide? Should we hide in here? I look around. I guess I'm at least passingly familiar with Darwin's area, but is there hiding spots? Is there anything shiny and valuable like?
Go ahead and make a check to see what you see.
Proactively searching for distractions. Hilarious.
So,
Like
I
anarchist
got
emo
keen-
crow so much,
Me too.
and
Big fan.
Aetherius wants to burn shit down, but I don't mind myself. It's
I
like-
got keen sense vision, so I use a D8.
And I will say that I would say for Darwin, he's probably gotten out of his cage without teleporting. He just wanted and so he has kleptomania. So if there were anything shiny, it's probably it is.
I also
What do you
I
think the
suppose
thing on
we've
his
gotta
back
see
is
who-
made out of?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Lots
gotta
of
see who's a
shinies.
better thief.
I
but,
just have a
like,
pile
there
of
is
valuables somewhere.
a
Also
natural
one.
one for the division.
Whoa!
So maybe Darwin missed some things.
You have seen this room set. So before I move on with the rest of this, watching the rest of this stream, I'm sure you noticed there, I think at one point all 5 of us were talking at once, which is in general not great. All of us had something fun and interesting to say, and we all said it at exactly the same time, and nobody heard anything. I still don't have an answer for this. If you do, please let me know in the chat or the comments. But when everybody has something to say, especially when it's improv performance and it needs to be said in the moment or it sort of like loses its value, I don't know how to handle that situation as a GM. I don't know if there is a way to handle that sort of situation. So I just, like I did here, sort of like let it play out and see what happens. Fortunately, it only happened for a couple seconds here, but I've had moments where, you know, it happens for a whole minute of people talking over each other, and, you know, at the only way I can stop it is like I have to raise my hand. And once I raise my hand, at least I don't know if this is how it works in other school systems, but a raised hand in most elementary schools means you want to talk. And that is, you know, the signal that, yes, I would like to talk now, and it's clear that I'm not supposed to because everyone else is. And I feel like that's a very clear and respectful way to tell the players, we're all talking over one another. I can't hear what any of you are saying. I would like to say something. And so I've done that. I don't think I've ever had to do that on stream before. Definitely have in home games. We haven't gone as far as, well, actually, no, we did go as far once when I was in college. We needed to have a talking stick because everybody wanted to have something to say. And it was, that was not a great session, if I recall correctly. So I'm still looking for a way around this. Like I said, it doesn't happen often. Here, it only happens for a couple seconds, and that's totally fine and okay. But if this happens again for, you know, a full minute, I need a way to break that up. And the problem with my current method of raise your hand is I don't have a way to make sure that everyone gets to say what they want to say at its maximum value. Because if you, like me, have some form of ADHD, then your working memory, like mine, is not great. I don't know if that's true across all people with ADHD. I just know it's true with me. Is my short-term or working memory is not the best. So if I was a player and I had to pause and 3 people got to say their bit and then it got to me, I'm going to forget what the question was, and I'm going to forget what I had to say in the actual stream. Oh, hey Alex, dang it. I don't know why you didn't get a notice this time. I'll have to look into that. Thank you for letting me know. But I still don't have a way other than raise your hand when everybody is talking to get them to stop. Fortunately, I'm doing this with adults. I've actually never run a game for kids, and there are many good Reese's. I do like Reese's, but there are many good resources out there for how to run TTRPGs for kids. The first one is TTRPG Kids, which is a channel that I think they just funded a Kickstarter to make I don't remember what they are making, but I know that they're focused on running TTRPGs for children. And there is also Hatchlings Games, which is a game designer group. Rich runs it, and I've never had the honor of speaking to him, but I hear he's a fantastic person from people that he's worked with. But he makes games that are specifically designed for children to play. The most recent one being Dragon Dowser, where you, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you get to play baby dragons. And I think that's really, really cool as an idea. But like I said, there are resources like this out there if you are running tabletop role-playing games for kids. And I think that everybody talking over themselves and over each other all at the same time is a more common problem with, 5-year-olds than it is for 35-year-olds. Anyway, end of tangent. Let's get back into the stream. Several times. This is only like the second or third time you've been inside of it, but you do see everything familiar. You can see several other cages, all of which are empty. You can see a maze table sort of set up in the center of the room. You can see a couple of writing desks with papers strewn across them. A central light in the ceiling that is currently off. And as you're looking, you can see from the what dim light is coming from the window, you can see a spark of movement. Something. So before we get into that spark of movement, I just said you can see about 6 or 7 times. And listening back to that, I don't really like it. Instead, I should have described it in the moment. Instead of you can see, you just say there is. I would describe it like the dimness of the room makes it difficult to make out many details. But there is a table with several empty cages on it, just like your own, across the way. There is a single ceiling light above you, currently off, but with the potential to shed some light on the situation should the need arise. And describe it sort of like that, where you're telling them what it is and telling them, like giving them options, making them aware that these are things that you could do should the need arise. In this case, turn on the light to the room. I don't know why they would want to do that, but giving players more options is usually a good thing because it allows them to think even more creatively and come up with even more cool, random nonsense that elevates the game that I wouldn't ever expect. So I didn't really like that description, but the end of it, I think, is what I was focusing on while I was describing this. And I think I could have done a better job, even though this was live and I was under a lot of cognitive load at the time. In this case, I do think I was focused on what happens next, this flicker of movement, now rising the tension slightly higher, making it obvious that there is something here, not just the characters downstairs, but now the characters upstairs know this too. Just that one little detail that sticks out and makes you go, question mark, danger, possibility? And that rising tension is very, very important to how I tell these stories. Brass skitters very fast across the floor and hides under a table.
Oh, mate, did you see that?
What?
It was something small and made of metal, and it sort of skittered across the floor and went under that cabinet sort of thing.
Another thing I really like doing when describing things is if that thing is fast, describe it by speaking quickly. So this brass creature with several legs skitters across the floor and hides under the table, versus this brass creature with several legs skitters across the floor and hides under the table. The speaking faster when something fast is moving elevates the tension even farther and increases the immersion, I think.
You didn't see it.
I mean, no, I didn't see anything. Like, trust me, if there was anything shiny and metal in here, I would know.
Nice.
But are you sure you saw something? Like, it wasn't like the reflection of the light, you know? Because sometimes the light plays little funny things, you know?
I mean, you know, yeah, mate, but I'm as sure as I can be in this light. It's
That's true.
It sort of, you know, seemed like some of the clockworky things maybe you were telling me about. That do they make those sort of things here still?
I mean, I haven't really seen anything else in this room other than, like, you know, the humans. But I mean, it's possible that there's something roaming around. I wonder. Do you think it's friendly?
I think we should set it on the coppers, mate.
Oh,
If we could get it to sort of run out and go do something to the con jobs, maybe we could make our escape.
that would be. As much as I don't want to, like, you know, cause any harm. It's really odd that the cops show up on the day that I'm escaping, and like I have this bad feeling that they might be after me. Maybe the humans knew that
Well,
what
you
I
have
was
to go
planning.
through me first, mate.
Oh,
We're here to get you out of this dump, and we go and get you out, no matter what any coppers say.
right. I think I like your plan. I think we should find that thing and flush it out and send it at the cops, because you know I don't like to, like, burn things down, but I'm getting out today, and
It's
just,
gotta be burnt. Sometimes, mate, it's like a cancer. You gotta just burn it out, sort of a thing. All right, let's go. Let's take a little look. Are you gonna teleport again? You want to sort of just ride on my back, and we'll go down to the floor.
yeah, just I'll grab on, and we'll ride down it together. The teleporting takes a lot of energy.
I think I sort of sewed like a little hand loop for Darwin, since I knew he was probably gonna have to hang on to my clothes, sort of thing. So I'm gonna get him on there and then fly down to the floor.
You do so very easily. Flying upwards might be more difficult, but gliding down to the floor is pretty straightforward. And as you glide down, you gently touch down. Darwin, you manage to do sort of like a little four-legged landing, and both of you are quickly looking around to see where this metal thing went. I'd like both of you to make checks to try to figure out where it is. And if you'd like, Darwin, you can rely on what you hear instead of what you see.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be perking his ears up and radaring it.
So another pause. I think this was a good movement, a good decision for me to point out, yes, you can use what you're good at. In general, it is better to have players do things that they are good at, that their characters were designed to do, than force them to do things that they are bad at. You should have more things that they are good at that they get to do, but you should also have occasionally some things that they are very bad at, especially with parties like this. This isn't true for every table. I mean, sometimes if you're doing like a hack and slash dungeon crawl, you're going to do, like, each party member is going to do what they are best at and avoid at all costs needing to do things that they are bad at. Like wizard and melee combat, when they just have a knife and no melee spells. Like, you're going to want to get away. That doesn't really elevate what type of game you're trying to play. But here, since we're focused on character, relationships, and the story, characters needing to do things that they are bad at, being forced into unlikely and unfortunate circumstances, is what makes stories good. Characters need to struggle in order to make a good story, and that's why we called them struggles in sagas. When your character is bad at something, you struggle at it, and that makes your character more impactful, more memorable, and allows room for development, which I'm not going to get into now, because character development is something that I still have yet to master through TTRPGs. I'm still working on how to do it well. We can get into that later, but yes, character development is cool. Letting characters do what they're good at is important. And I think that's one of the very few universal pieces of advice that I think should work for 90% of TTRPG groups or more. If you are struggling at life, sure, we can call your life a saga. You don't have to be struggling. You can just call your life a saga. And yes, Alex, I did see your comment from earlier. We did talk about pre-written word descriptions. I like to call them readouts right up top, because I think the best place to have them is right at the beginning, because that is the only time when you can be absolutely 100% certain that you will have the floor. That is right at the top, and it gives you the opportunity to put in as much effort as you can to drop the players into the world, into this immersion. I didn't do it for this one. I don't think I did any pre-written descriptions or readouts for this game. And sometimes you're not going to be able to. In this case, I want to say it was because I just didn't have time to do it outside of the stream. So pre-written descriptions can take a while. Like, you can spend a really long time on them. And I know a couple people that do. Myriad X on Twitch, she is excellent at pre-written stuff. Like, she does letters that she gets to not hand out because it's online, but the player gets a letter, she's reading out exactly what the letter says. And she does this like 2 or 3 times a session, and it's wild to me. It's so good. And it's one thing that I'm trying to get better at, is railroading the story into being able to use pre-written stuff. I would suggest that you do try pre-written descriptions at least a couple times if you haven't yet. See how they work for you. In fact, that's my piece of advice for everything that I'm saying here. Try it once, maybe twice. And if it doesn't work, throw it out the window. Doesn't matter for you. It's not helpful. But if it does, let me know. I love to hear when my advice is helpful to people. Jacob, we are, yes, it is going to be a good time. You know that this was all a good time, but let's see where we are right now.
That's a 7.
It's a 4 for Hudson.
You peer into the shadows that are cast about this entire room. The two of you are sticking to the light, where there's a part in the clouds, and the gibbous moon shines in, illuminating the two of you back to back as you look around at this floor. And you know something is here. You can feel it. But you can't hear it, and you can't see it.
Is there anything on the floor that I can grab with my tail and kind of raise up? That might be, or just anything around me.
This is a pretty clean room, being a lab. There's not a bunch of stuff that you could grab on this floor, but you do raise your tail in apprehension.
Yeah.
Hoping. This is an example of sometimes you got to say no. I mean, when it's something as minor as this, like I'm looking for something to grab and raise above my head to defend myself, sometimes there's just nothing around. In this case, there was I couldn't think of something that would make sense to be on the floor of this lab. Maybe a tool fell off the table. I have no idea what tool that would be, and I didn't want to have to figure that out in the middle of running this stream. So instead, I just said, no, there's nothing here. And fortunately, Druid was okay with that. The explanation made sense, and it was okay. Sometimes you do have to say no to a player. Don't say no too often, but it is okay to do on occasion. To defend against something, because you're pretty sure whatever's in here knows that you are also in here. You hear a click at the door, and it opens slightly. Full disclosure, Matt Mercer can do door noises. I cannot.
Thing coming in or out? Don't mate, you hear anything?
I don't hear anything. I know it's here though, and I don't think any of the humans are supposed to be here tonight. That's why we chose this time.
Right, they're all home sleeping and whatnot. Nothing's coming in or out of this door, just sort of opened.
No, it just sort of opened.
Well, I guess the only thing that we can do is go check it out.
All right, mate. Let's. Oh, I'm gonna just sort of do the little crow hop alongside Darwin as Darwin scurries towards the door.
As both of you scurry into the hallway, I'd like you both to make checks to see how quiet you can be.
So with no sort of skill in that, is that a 12? A D12?
A D10 is the base
10.
die.
All right, thank you.
D10 is the next time.
That's a 6. Like little.
That is a 1.
Nice,
Hey!
mate. Nice one, mate.
Nice.
Go.
Darwin, you easily slip into the shadows right at the corner of the door and the wall and the floor. Critter, you're not used to hiding on flat surfaces indoors. You're more used to the branches of trees and the leaves that can give you cover. So you're just sort of hopping towards the door as quietly as you can. Clack, 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 clack. One of the things, I paused again, one of the things that I like to do with successes and failures for ability checks is think of excuses for why this roll makes sense. When I can't think of something, it ends up being really, really funny. Like, why on earth would you succeed at this? How do you possibly know this? And it ends up being like something funny that happens at the table, which is okay in this case because this is, not 100% serious. But here, mice, when, I don't know if you've seen mice, but like when they're in a house, they tend to be as close to the wall on the floor as they possibly can as they skitter across. And so that was my explanation for why the rat here did that as well. The nature of what animal it is and their tendencies when they are trying to hide makes it work. And for a failure in this case, a crow is inside. Gonna be tough to hide. I did not try to make that rhyme on purpose, but damn am I pleased that it did. So, the crow's not going to be able to hide itself when there are no trees that it's used to around. So being able to describe their, how their rolls and their checks make sense is, I don't know if it elevates the game, but it's what I use as the basis for my description as for what happens as a result of their roll.
I'm since I am like much better at hiding, I am kind of keeping an eye on Hudson as well, and so like if anything were to like jump out, like he's ready to like start swinging.
Mm-hmm.
So
you keep an eye on Hudson, and Hudson also makes it out into this hallway where you are already waiting. And the hallway, just like the room behind you, is very dark. There is the smell of rotting wood. There's parts of this building that must be much older than the room in which you stayed. The air feels cold. No drafty breeze, though. And as Critter, you hop down the hallway towards the stairs. Darwin, you're keeping an eye out best you can in every direction. You don't see any threats. As you turn and follow Critter towards these stairs, the rest of us watching this can see 2 pinpricks of blue light appear in the doorway from the room you just left. And we'll switch back to the cops downstairs. So here's an example. I did several things here, putting as many tools to use as I can to make this work. 1, increase the tension by describing the 2 pinpricks of light that are definitely eyes without saying they're eyes. Using that to increase tension. Using this time as a description to get ready to switch scenes and transition to the other two people that are in this house. And a third thing that my ADHD brain ate, and I hope that I've talked about it before. I know, I just don't remember what it was going to be. So this little description, cliffhanger, that's what it was. So I was using this description to lead up to a transition, and the transition itself is a cliffhanger because because we saw that immediate rise in tension right before we switch scenes. And to achieve this, I use something that I don't use that often, and I only ever use on stream, is I allow the audience to see something that the characters cannot. This is something that I just kind of stole from like horror films in general, when you can see the monster rising above someone that is turned around and can't see this thing. So the people watching the movie get to see it and their heart rates increase, and the person wandering around is completely unaware. It's the classic trope of people in horror movies are dumb. Like, it's right there, just turn around, you can see it. The reason that this works is because that just turn around feeling is a perfect way to increase that tension. And since this is a relatively dark setting that Grimm is going to be, I wanted to make sure that we got that horror-esque kind of tension. And I think it worked out really well here for this specific transition.
I do have an immediate question, Dennis. Can I have a like steam powered like megaphone for flavor? Otherwise, I think it's really hard for, I don't know how well my voice would carry without it. I don't have any mechanical use for it, but I just think for flavor, it'd be funny if you had a little steampunk microphone or megaphone.
Yeah, we'll say that's your second piece of equipment, and you've taken, or someone had taken, this like itty bitty tiny like earphone that used to be used for those that are hard of hearing, and sort of attached a tiny little speaker to just the inside of it. And it works just like a normal megaphone. It's a little bit bulky, but it definitely gets the job done for something that small.
Okay. And we've heard, like, have we heard or noticed anything coming from the second floor? Do we have any awareness that there is anything happening there?
According to you and what you've seen, this building's pretty much deserted.
Okay. All right, I'm going to take out, give me 1 second here.
So here's a good example of responding to clarifying questions, which are going to happen, and that is okay. And it's an important thing to know is how to respond to them when they do happen, not if, when. Especially since we're doing this game the way we are, with two split parties that are going to come colliding together at the end. I expected there to be more clarifying questions than this, to be honest. Both one for reason of, when the camera's not on their character, the player might not be paying attention. Fortunately, the people at this table are invested enough and excited enough about this story that we're telling that that's not the case, but it could happen. The response that you should have when clarifying questions are asked is answer it in the voice of what their character is seeing or what their character is experiencing. This will enhance the player's immersion into the game while also answering their question. So instead of saying, here's the map, this room is this room is this, and you can see this hallway and the doors on each side. Describe what that character is actually seeing. You see a dark hallway with two closed doors on the left and one door on the right slightly ajar. So use those powers of description instead of just making it as simple and clear as possible. it is a little bit risky, especially with clarifying questions, to make it more vague, and use that sort of descriptive skill to answer their question, because you might not actually answer their question during your description. But it is something that I have done often enough that I'm confident where I can deepen immersion and answer the question at the same time. It's definitely something that took me a lot of practice, especially I got a lot of practice early on because I had a lot of clarifying questions. I was like, wait, so where is the enemy? Are they in this room or are they in this room? Am I back to back with this person, or am I, because I was just bad at describing things, so I had a lot of chances to answer those questions. And this is sort of the best form of answering them that I've developed over the years.
Oi! Anybody on the premises, this is your opportunity to come out. This is the police. The quicker you come out, the quicker we can get this over with. He's going to put it down to his side. He's kind of like looking into the darkness expectantly.
And as he's doing that, I'm just kind of maneuvering like forward, just keeping an eye out, looking around.
Darwin and Critter, you both hear the shouts coming up the stairs, and the audience, you see the 2 points of blue light behind them wink out.
Hudson,
Oh, the coppers are right downstairs.
they must be after me. They know I'm trying to escape.
Well,
can't-
okay, mate. We can still snow them. We can still snow them. I've still got a distraction or 3 up my wing, and we could, there must be another way out, right?
Oi, listen, it's been a long day, okay? Quicker you come out, the quicker we can all go home.
All right.
You're not in trouble. We're not mad. We're just disappointed. Come out.
Okay, I paused. I forgot that joke happened. So I just wanted to say again, and I've said it earlier on this stream, but this specific cast, the audio is earlier than the video when it is the recording. That's a deep issue. I might know what it is, and it's not something I can do while I'm live. But thanks for letting me know, Jacob. So, hey, you not because the live audio is synced up with the video, you will be able to know when I'm talking, right? But one, that joke was amazing. 2, I was going to say, and I was finding the perfect time to say this, but as one thing I sort of like naturally leaned into with this experiment of starting the party as split and then moving them together at the end, is they get closer and closer and closer together. The time we spend in each of them, looking at each of them with the camera, is shorter and shorter and shorter, and we alternate more and more and more. And this was not discussed, to be clear. These guys are just that good. But we started naturally. You can see here, they're already quote unquote in scene with each other. As one is shouting up and as into a different scene, essentially, as the other 2 are murmuring amongst themselves about what's happening. And this, you can't rely on players to do this. This was just genius and stroke of luck on my part for having such an amazing cast. There are, I think, very few groups of people with which this would work. But very few, not with which this would work, but very few who would get a sense of that quickening the transitions and the time in which we spend each scene. That wasn't. Oh man, I'm critiquing my own sentence structure live. That's not good. But these players very clearly knew what was happening. They felt it going on, and the alternation, I think, quickens from this point until we go to break.
Listen,
Can I use my anarchist trait at this point to see if I can keep silent in the face of the coppers?
So anarchist is a struggle, and yes, I am going to require a roll from you.
Okay.
You need to make a check, and if you fail, you have to yell back.
And
Amazing.
that's a D12 because it's a struggle. Okay.
I'm
Hudson is very tempted. And I think Darwin, for a moment, and knowing him as you do, you see Hudson sort of puff up his little bird chest as if he's getting ready to say something
he's just
that
gonna-
you know is stupid. And then he deflates a little bit and he whispers, "Mate, I was going to tell him that it was a long, bloody day beating the downtrodden and the poor and whatnot, and I didn't."
Bro,
I'm very proud of you, Hudson. You have definitely have listened. I don't really know much about the things you speak of, but yeah, I'm glad that you didn't shout at them, because I think now we might. They're in our way, Hudson. We might have to. What do you call? What do you like to say? Roast some pigs.
We might have to roast the little piggies, mate. You
Yeah.
see this giant big grin starting to split Hudson's face.
I'm getting out of here today, Hudson.
You're
And-
getting out of here, mate. We're getting out.
You know, I'm so proud. Like I'm gonna take a page out of your book, and let's I think I have a couple tricks too that we can figure out. Yeah, I have a lot of little gadgets. Some light. We can blind them.
We
and
can
then-
blind them. I got a couple tricks as well. It's not quite as impressive as your teleporting on, mate. I'll tell you that one. But
Look, Tobias, at this point, if anybody was here, they would have come out. Let's pack it up. I mean, come
No,
on,
but
right?
but hold on. There's one thing that I think is very peculiar. The intel says that this was a laboratory, right? Where are the Bunsen burners? Where are the beakers? Where is all the equipment?
I
Where's all the
mean,
experimentation?
I guess that's fair.
It's as if
Yeah,
someone.
I mean, if you want to continue on with whatever gets us out of here quicker, the
Oh,
better.
I see. But
Out of character, I think that there is more in common between Hudson.
Totally. Absolutely.
You'll be the only good couple I ever met.
Really, there is no tangible benefit from this. There is no difference to him if they would have just peeked their head in and be like, anybody there, and not gone and then left. It would have been
Just-
identical mission to him, but he does respect Tobias, and so he's like entertaining this. All right,
Just for
if that's what you think, let's look for the lab then.
are we up? Is it like we're upstairs and they're downstairs? Is that what this is?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm
Yes.
just trying to recall.
And not in
Darwin
a
and
way
Hudson
we
have
can
now
s-
made it to like the top of the stairs.
Yeah.
Yeah. All you can see downstairs, but you can't see the hallway where our other characters are.
Mhm.
And I'd like to ask Tobias. Look at me there, not taking my own advice. Don't do as I say, not as I do, right? Drew has just asked a clarifying question, and I think in this case it was okay. I think I actually made the right decision? Question mark? Because it was a very simple question of, are we at the top of the stairs? Yes or no? The answer is yes, and I gave a little bit more. And I think that's okay, as long as it's one sentence and it's not a long description of exactly where you are in relation to each other thing in the room or in the house. Because it was short enough, it's okay to not do that, in-depth, spooky description. It can just be, yes, you are at the top of the stairs. You can see this and this, the end. But if I don't think making a long description of, yes, you're at the top of the stairs, you can't quite see the two people downstairs, but they're there. You can see 3 open doors on the first floor and just go launch into this description of exactly what they see. That's not what was being asked. It was just a simple, yes, where are we? At the top of the stairs. Okay. And I know that my idea of stairs in this case was not the same as anyone else's here. I'm relatively certain, there's a small chance it might have been. But when you describe stairs, there's so many different orientations that are possible, and I just got rid of that. I never, ever elaborated on exactly which direction the stairs were facing, because that would have not added anything to the story that we were telling at that time. Bias, what are you doing at this
Yeah,
point?
my intent is to clear the first floor.
Okay.
And then if the first floor is clear, then to head upstairs.
Go ahead and make a check to see what you find.
Oh, cool. 9.
9. You nose open the first door on your left, and it squeaks open, and you look in, don't really see anything, and then peek back out. But Sprinkles, you also, just out of pure curiosity, you're not really sure why you did it, but you peek inside, and there is a full chemistry setup. The wall is covered in strangely bent glass tubing. There are several currently cold Bunsen burners underneath glass jars for boiling certain liquids. And the walls and table are just covered in this stuff. So in this case, I think it's okay that I didn't use scents and air feel and using other senses for this description. Thanks for joining, Alex. I'm always happy to see you pop into streams. Let me know if you have any questions once you watch the VOD. Just throw them in the comments on the video. For this description, I think it's okay that we didn't go through, or I didn't go through, more than one sense, because it was really only like 3 important things in the room itself at this time to give them a vibe of what this was. And this was my way around the fact that Tobias failed this check. Like, Tobias just kind of poked in, nope, nothing, okay, poke out. And I really wanted them to know what was in that room. I don't know why, in hindsight, this room is not important. It's really not. Like, there is something cool that happens in there later, but it's not planned. I'm glad that I provided it, but in the moment, I think it would have been fine to just like let that check fail. But I had an idea in my head, and I wanted to get it into the game. So I said, you're looking, and while you are looking, someone else just happens to notice, And it was okay. The description itself could have been better, maybe a little bit longer, but again, I was just making that room up on the spot, which made it a lot harder. Yeah, and I'm kind of surprising myself too here. Like, Tobias, you did look in, but I gave the description to Sprinkles based on the fact that Tobias failed the check. And it was also like out of character too for Tobias to just like kind of nose in, nope, nothing, and then nose out, given how excited Tobias is about this whole prospect. So definitely something that I could have done better, I think. And that's why we are watching this. And I think on that note, I'm going to have to end the stream there and start wrapping up. I didn't get through nearly as much of this stream as I thought I would or wanted to. We're less than a third of the way through. We're about a third of the way through this stream. So it sounds like this is going to be 2 more live streams. Oh, well, too bad. I do really want to go through the rest of this one shot because a lot of really, really cool stuff happens, especially at the end. So for those of you that were able to stick around or drop in, and those of you that were able to watch this VOD all the way to the end, thank you very much again for your time. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you have any questions about what my thought process was when I was running this game, or have any comments about games that you run and things that you think I should try next time and see if it works for my table as well as it works for yours. I love that stuff. So again, thank you for watching, and remember, everything is going to be okay.